When people hear the phrase dangerous border, they usually think of heavily guarded checkpoints, military standoffs, or walls stretching across deserts. Places where the threat is obvious. But there is one border where danger doesn't always announce itself. No warning sirens. No bustling civilian crossings. Sometimes, even getting too close can put your life at risk. This is the border between North and South Korea, home to one of the most heavily fortified frontiers on Earth and the world's most famous demilitarized zone. It is a place where decades of hostility, military tension, and political division have kept two nations technically at war for more than 70 years. Yet, despite its global reputation, few people fully understand what daily life around this border is actually like. The border stretches for approximately 250 kilometers, separating the Korean peninsula into North Korea and South Korea. Running across its center is the Korean Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, a strip of land about 4 kilometers wide that was established after the Korean War armistice in 1953. Despite its name, the DMZ is surrounded by thousands of troops, military outposts, surveillance systems, minefields, and fortified positions on both sides. It is widely considered one of the most heavily guarded borders in the world. To understand why this border became so dangerous, we have to go back to the end of World War II. After Japan surrendered in 1945, Korea, previously under Japanese rule, was divided along the 38th parallel. The Soviet Union occupied the north, while the United States administered the south. What was intended as a temporary division soon became permanent as two rival governments emerged. In 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea, triggering the Korean War. After 3 years of devastating fighting, an armistice ended active combat in 1953. However, no formal peace treaty was ever signed. Technically, North and South Korea remain at war to this day. The geography of the border adds another layer of complexity. The DMZ cuts through mountains, forests, rivers, and farmland. Large portions are inaccessible due to landmines and military restrictions. Ironically, because human activity has been limited for decades, the area has become an unexpected refuge for wildlife, with many rare plants and animals thriving inside the protected zone. Crossing the border without authorization is almost impossible. The border is protected by multiple layers of fencing, motion sensors, cameras, guard towers, and extensive patrols. In many places, there are minefields on both sides. Even approaching certain areas can trigger military responses. The heavily fortified defenses are designed to prevent infiltration and maintain constant surveillance. Guarding the border is an enormous responsibility. South Korea's armed forces, supported by the United Nations Command in certain areas, patrol the southern side. North Korea's military guards the northern side with equal intensity. Both militaries maintain a constant state of readiness. Every movement is carefully monitored, and even small incidents can quickly attract international attention. Over the decades, the Korean border has witnessed numerous deadly incidents. There have been exchanges of gunfire, defections, military confrontations, tunnel discoveries, naval clashes near the maritime boundary, and isolated attacks. Several North Korean soldiers have attempted dramatic escapes across the DMZ, while others have crossed accidentally or intentionally under dangerous circumstances. Although major armed conflict has been avoided in recent decades, tensions periodically rise during military exercises, missile tests, or political crises. One of the biggest challenges is uncertainty. Military commanders must determine within seconds whether unusual activity represents an accidental crossing, a defection, routine movement, or a potential attack. Because both sides remain heavily armed, misunderstandings carry serious risks. This constant uncertainty is one reason why the border remains so sensitive. The most well-known location along the border is the Joint Security Area, where soldiers from both sides once stood face to face only a few meters apart. It has hosted historic meetings between leaders, diplomatic negotiations, and rare moments of cooperation. At the same time, it has also been the site of violent confrontations, including deadly incidents during the Cold War. For ordinary civilians, life near the border is shaped by strict security measures. Some villages operate under special regulations. Farmers often require military permission to work certain fields. Road access may be restricted, and emergency procedures are part of everyday life. Although millions live elsewhere on the Korean peninsula, communities closest to the border experience its presence every day. Another humanitarian issue is divided families. When Korea was divided, millions of relatives suddenly found themselves living on opposite sides of the border. For decades, many had no way of communicating with one another. Occasionally, the two governments have organized temporary family reunions, allowing elderly relatives to meet after decades of separation. For many families, these emotional reunions are their only opportunity to see loved ones again. North Korean defections also remain an important issue. Some North Koreans risk dangerous journeys to escape the country, although very few attempt to cross directly through the DMZ because of the extreme danger. Most defectors instead travel through neighboring countries before eventually reaching South Korea. Their Koreas have held high-level summits, reopened communication channels, and journeys often involve significant personal risk. Despite decades of hostility, there have also been periods of cooperation. The two Koreas have held high-level summits, reopened communication channels, and negotiated military confidence-building measures. At various times, they have reduced guard posts, removed some landmines, and conducted joint recovery efforts for soldiers' remains. Although progress has often stalled, dialogue continues to play an important role in reducing tensions. Economically, the border represents both division and lost opportunity. Unlike many international frontiers, there is very little routine commercial traffic across the DMZ. Projects such as the Kaesong Industrial Complex once demonstrated the potential for economic cooperation, but political tensions have repeatedly interrupted such efforts. If relations were ever to improve significantly, the border could become a major corridor connecting the Korean peninsula with the rest of Asia. Perhaps that's why this border is so fascinating. It represents two very different realities at the same time. On one hand, it is one of the world's most militarized borders, shaped by decades of political rivalry, military preparedness, and nuclear tensions. On the other, it separates people who share thousands of years of common history, language, culture, traditions, and ancestry. For many Koreans, the border divides governments, but not their shared heritage. So, is this truly the world's most dangerous border? That depends on how we define danger. Some borders experience active wars. Others face large-scale migration or organized crime. But the border between North and South Korea is dangerous because of the constant possibility that even a small misunderstanding could escalate between two heavily armed states. Its risks stem from unresolved conflict, military confrontation, political tension, and decades of mutual distrust. It is a place where soldiers remain on alert every hour of every day. The next time you look at a map, remember that borders are more than lines. They shape nations. They separate families. They influence diplomacy. And sometimes, they become places where history, politics, and human lives remain suspended between war and peace. The border between North and South Korea remains one of the most closely watched and strategically important frontiers in the world, a lasting reminder that even decades after the guns fell silent, the legacy of conflict can endure.